look at it. Are you feeling bad yet, Brother Kevin? Okay, I got 30 minutes left to pull this off. And so what we will do is we're going to do kind of a flyby at the end. That's overview. Where after we look at verse 5, we're going to look that it takes something else too. There is an intentionality, okay? There is some action, okay? It is the result of the Spirit. But there is something else it takes, and that's some courage. Okay, because we've spent weeks talking about this. Okay, we could put together a test. Everybody in here would get at least a B on that test. We would pass. We'd be happy. Okay, but that doesn't mean we're doing anything, because it takes some courage to do some things, and we'll end up hopefully looking at that idea of it takes some courage. That being said, let's hurry up and get in here. Verse 5. Mortify, put to death. We literally need to kill some things. Therefore, your members which are upon the earth. Okay, and we went through this list. Fornication, which is porneia, which is, okay, here you go. This is the whole group. Remember, Brother Wayne, everything underneath here would fit into this group. Okay, so this is, let's start with the big one. So if you're sitting right there saying, well, mine is kind of over here. Well, it fits underneath here. Okay, every sensual sin fits underneath this idea. But then he gets a little bit more specific. So mortify therefore your members which are upon the earth. Fornication, uncleanliness. This is physically, morally wrong. This is an action. These are things done. Inordinate affection. This is passion. These are things desired. It becomes inordinate because it comes to a place that we don't control it. It's almost addictive behavior. It just becomes who we are, where we go. Why? Because the brain is wired that this is the answer. So this is where we go for the solution. Okay, so inordinate affection, evil concupiscence, which this is forbidden desires. This stays in that thoughtful idea, but these things this is the door never to be opened. And then it gets to this idea, and covetousness, which is idolatry. Now that's where we're going to get to here in a minute. Because usually when you get here, this is kind of this picture, okay, covetousness. This talks about greediness. This talks about a desire to possess, to have. It's more and more. You say the word to me, and I think of graves of cravings from like Numbers. That they during the Exodus, they died in graves of cravings. They were never happy. They were never satisfied. And I kind of get this picture. That's what we think of. And so we go through this list, and we have this list of sensual sins and covetousness, like it's just tagged on there. And if you read it fast, that's how you think. But JR, I want us to see by the time we're done today, it's not just tagged on there. It fits in this very group. There's a reason why it's right here. And actually, if you think about this a little bit more, because Brother Kevin, this is what I do. I start asking these questions. Okay, if you go down to verse 8 has a list of some very destructive things. I mean, there is nothing that destroys the home as much as anger. It's right up there. I mean, there might be things on the same level, but nothing tops it. I mean, you want to talk about boom, explosive, destructive mess. But notice it says put off. It doesn't say put to death. Is Paul just being a little nice here? No, there's reasons for everything. Okay, I want you to understand when we get there, and we will get there, these things are all actions. These are all things we do. These are all choices. Okay, and when you go to verse 5, they're choices too, but those choices are idolatry. Okay, everything there, we're going to these areas for things that only God should provide. This is where our identity gets filled. This is where our purpose gets filled. This is where we draw from. Okay, and if we're drawing from the world's answers, there's no hope for life. These things must be put to death. So it starts there. Now, we started, and so we want to do three things. First, we want to talk about just the nature of that list. And not going to spend a lot of time, because we need to get to the third part, so Brother Kevin doesn't ask me to come back again, because I would say no. But when we get to what the nature is, the biblical nature and the worldly nature are totally different. Okay, because the worldly nature of everything in that list is, this is a physical act, it has these purposes, it does this, you can argue about all that stuff, but it leaves it right there. Okay, well, in the Bible, it's always phrased this way. Adam knew his wife. Okay, it's not about act, it's about relationship. Peter would tell us, husbands, dwell with your wives according to knowledge. Okay? This is a relationship. There is no such, biblically, there is no such thing as casual physical sex. Okay? This act, as the world would throw it out there, is more than an act, it's always relationship. Okay, so there's the biblical nature, and that's part of what makes it such a problem and such a challenge, because we want to say, well, just let it go and move on, but it's hard to let it go and move on because it's relational. It's also spiritual. It's also emotional, and it was meant to be that way. Now, we went from there, we spent some time, and we jumped into the second thing we want to look at, and what are the messages of sensuality, what the world tries to push out. Okay, and there are many, okay? It tries to push out that this is a fulfilling thing, this creates independence. Okay, for you young guys, this is what will make you a man. Okay, go off and have fun being a man today. Stupid things. Okay, and if you tried to deal with all of them, you'd never get out of this hole. So this is what we did. We used a article, a study that was done by PBS, and I said this is probably the only time I've ever used PBS, probably the only time I ever will use PBS, but somehow they came to a decent conclusion. Okay, and it was based off of, the title was The Lost Children of Rockdale County, which is northern Atlanta. It's a very affluent, wealthy state. It's a very wealthy white area. Okay, and in the late 90s, 200 kids, some as young as 12 years old, had to be treated for syphilis. And so this made PBS want to come and find out why. Okay, looking for the person to blame. But upon a deeper dive, this was their conclusions, that these kids, more than just being active, were struggling with things like loneliness, belonging, identity, acceptance, value. They felt isolated, they felt neglected. They came from homes where parents were good people, but they were so busy dealing with their own stuff that there was no parenting going on. Okay, and so it left the kids, I want you to listen for this, searching for significance, for love, and for purpose. Now, beloved, where are we supposed to find significance, love, and purpose? This is just a group of kids who need God. And that should not be shocking to us. In fact, they're not wicked, they're doing wicked things. But what they are blind and ignorant, and I'll even go a little bit further, they're desperate. Now, that's my opinion, so, step away. A little bit further than that, I think they're the future leaders. Why? Because they're doing something. They're in this place and doing something. There's a lot of people who do nothing. They're doing the wrong thing because they're blind and ignorant. But they're doing something. What would have happened if somebody gives them the right thing to do? That's just a challenge. I have taught in school before. Okay, you have a whole bunch of kids who just quietly go along. Those are usually the ones everyone pats on the back. Then you have the problematic kid who argues over every little thing. Well, in my opinion, if you get that problematic kid who argues over every little thing and you give them the right things to argue for, guess what you now have in that class? You have a leader in that class. They just don't know what to fight for. They just don't know where to go. We spent some time looking at that picture because it's a good application, and it keeps me from having to go through 17 different points. But it leads to a question. The question is for us. Are we creating an environment here in this place? An environment of grace and mercy and purpose? And I'll put acceptance in there, but acceptance comes after purpose because those two things have to go together. We don't accept everything. I accept the person, but I need you to understand that your purpose is this, not where you're chasing. Okay, they all go together. Are we a place that loves possibility? Is that what we promote? Because as Amos would say, my people are panting after the dust of the earth. We live in a time where people are panting after things that can't satisfy. And what they need is to come to the fountain, which is not us, it is Christ. But we are supposed to be the oasis where these things can be found. And we do need to ask the question, is that how we would be perceived? Now, All that, Brother Kevin, leads us to where we left off. Okay? And that's this picture right here, verse 5. Mortify, therefore, your members which are upon the earth. And it ends with this thought of, and covetousness. So usually that's financial things, that's material things, that's a money thing, that's things to be possessed. So, why is this idea tacked on? Well, it's not tacked on. I want you to understand that last little, it's things to be possessed. Okay. If you do any amount of study in this idea of disordered sexuality, you will find out that often, if not always, at the root of it is greed and covetousness. What do you mean, greed and covetousness? Well, it manifests itself this way: an insatiable desire to control, to possess someone. And in this possession and control, you consume them. What's being consumed in this case is not finances, it's people. So, well, how would I know if I'm struggling there? Okay, well, what happens when you get into this viewpoint is that people are no longer there to be cherished or to be protected or to be loved or to be provided for or to be served. That's supposed to be our goal. Okay, I love you. I cherish you. I want to serve you. I want to support you. It is about you. That's supposed to be it, right? Well, something happens in there and it changes, and now it's not about loving or serving or sacrificing or protecting or cherishing. Now it's about using. It becomes about consuming. What I need is you to fill my need, to take care of me, to think of me, to do for me, to serve me, to work for me, to clean for me. It's about me. It changes. So when we get to this idea, what needs to die here, it's those four things above. No, what needs to die here is the selfish greed, the desire to control, the desire to possess, which will always destroy because it consumes. What does it consume? It consumes things like hope and love and trust and value. Okay, and when it begins to consume those things, what happens? Our walls go up. The minute she thinks it's all about you and she's being used and she's being taken advantage of, then it is so hard not to protect self. But no walls need to be there when you're protecting her. When to you it's all about her. This isn't tagged on. This is the root. You contrast the world's way versus the biblical way. Well, the world's way is about covenant, it's about trust, it's relational. The world's way is about consuming. It's about you're for me. Let me just say, I've been in church a long time. Okay, sometimes we push this idea. It's one thing when the idea is being pushed out there, but sometimes we push it. Well, Jeremy, doesn't the Bible say her body's not hers and mine's not? It does, okay? But you shouldn't be the one saying it, because if you're talking to me, then the only thing you can deal with is you. So let's talk about how you view her. Let's talk about the things you can control, which is you. When does it do good to talk about what they should do? This is like the only area where we make it okay to talk about, yeah, you're being failed, they should, she should, he should. Okay, I don't want to talk about what they should. Let's talk about what you should, and what you should is put them first. And if you'll do that, you'll probably see some of these other things begin to change. Because that is such a special thing. It doesn't happen anywhere else on earth. That will make you so precious. Nobody else is going to do that. Often it shows itself in words like this. How do you get words like this? Because I've heard them. I've heard them from the her and from the him. And I see the destruction that it causes. See, this can become so manipulative. Words like you owe me. My whatever, fill in the blank. Okay, nothing destroys a relationship more because it shows your focus is all on you. It drives people far from you. So, and if you're talking to somebody in this situation, please let me just give you this piece of advice. Don't talk to person A about what person B should do. Only talk to person A about what person A should do, who they should be, what their identity is. Live out who you are. Okay, this is where you let God take care of person B, but you got to be who you are, which focuses right here. So what would we do about it? Well, I'm going to tell any person. So let's focus on Jesus and what he did. Okay, he lived a life that was not for me, but was for you. In this case, I'm the you, so I'm very thankful about that. He didn't keep tabs. In fact, he came and he forgave. Look at his disciples, 3 years of mess up. He's getting ready to go to the cross. They're arguing over who's the greatest. Can it be any worse? He's thinking about, okay, this is what you're going to do afterwards. Because I'm going to take you from where you are to where I want you to be, because it's all about what I can do. Just surrender to me. It's not about giving people what they deserve. Okay, we don't need to keep a list so we can punish our spouse. Or it's not about what they deserve. It's about giving grace. It's about new beginnings. It's not about please me. It's about how can I serve you. It's not possession. What did he do? He came to free us. The whole book of Galatians is written so that we might understand that ye might be free. Free indeed. Use this liberty, not to sin, but use this liberty. We spend our time living in grave clothes, which is why he writes that some things must be put to death. And while we spend all this time wrapped up in this, instead of just looking at Jesus and trying to follow his example, our kids, our relationships, our friends, our grandkids are being damaged. So, Paul writes to this group, mortify therefore your members. He goes on to verse 6 to say, I want you to understand, for which things' sake the wrath of God cometh upon the children of disobedience, in the which ye also walked sometimes when ye lived in them. I understand this is where your battle is. I understand this is who you are. I understand this is what you fight with. But understand this, which is why you spend 4 weeks talking about identity. This is not who you are anymore. You have been made a new thing. So put to death those things that never satisfied. And then he goes on in verse 8, which we'll start to look at next week. Now, to do this requires a programming of the mind, okay, which is why we spent some time there. But it also takes some courage, which means I'm running from this whole subject now, Brother Kevin. That's all you get. It takes courage. Why does it take courage? Well, to quit protecting myself takes courage. Because if I quit protecting myself, I might get hurt. To love others, to put them first, I tell you, it's not natural. When we go through this list of things to put off, these things pretty, I can get some things done when I get angry. Do I really want to let that go? Okay, do I want to change how I motivate and move? And okay, when I look at this other list, the things I'm supposed to put on, that's not exactly the way everything works. It takes some courage to put on the new self. Now, it begins with identity. So we ask the question, who do we think we are? And we know that answer. We're a child of God. We have infinite worth. We are the masterpiece of his creation. Okay, we know who we are. But after identity, it still takes some courage. Now, when we start next week to look at this list of things to put off, there's a very good chance I'm going to go back and look at Saul. Because having a nice example, Brother Doug makes this biblical and no one says, you're picking on me. And the truth is, this is in this list because we all need this. Okay? We are tempted to live in verse 8. That we're tempted to be that person. That's why we have to put it off. But it's easier if we're looking at Saul to apply. So that's probably what we're going to do. Well, understand this. For 3 weeks, I've been thinking about this. So Daniel, what's happened is, in looking at Saul, there's a lot of time I've had to look at David. So here we are. I'm going to say it takes some courage. Well, as much as Saul is going to be a picture of verse 8, I think David is a great picture of the courage that it takes to live inside the identity of who you are. It's also a story we're very familiar with, so we can go over it in a short period of time. But that would be, you go back to 1 Samuel chapter 17, where David and the Goliath. And this is a great picture because David has to go out on that field alone and face Goliath. And that, I mean, is there any greater picture of courage? Maybe, but that's a good one that's up there. But I want you to understand, it's not just that he goes out there to face him that shows his courage. It's how he goes out there. Okay, and that shows partly his identity. Because after this whole convincing with Saul to let him go out there, Saul says, all right, if you're going to do it, you got to do it right. So here's my armor, here's my sword, here's the plan, here's how I would do it.
Right.
And David says, I'm not a warrior. I'm not a king. I'm a shepherd. And what I do is throw stones. And I've dealt with a bear, and God delivered me. And I dealt with a lion, and God delivered me. And when I go out there and face Goliath, it will be up to God just the same. You see, there's some identity there. This is who I am. Okay? And when we get to this place that this is who we are, it builds up inside of us some courage. It's going to take some courage to put off anger. It's going to take some courage to put off malice. You know, malice, this idea of giving people what they deserve. Okay? It's the opposite of grace, but there is something about it that says, it's wise. It's wise to be full of malice. Except in every list, malice needs to go. But there's something inside of us that wants to hold on. I don't want to be gullible. I don't want to be hurt. I want to be protecting. I want to be. But malice needs to go. So how do you get to that? It takes courage. And that courage is based upon who I am. Okay, it's not about me and it's not about you. It's about him. And that provides the courage to go and face the giants. So you look at David, because this is me. Where did David get this? Okay, I want to have this. Mikey, I want to be like this. I want to be courageous. Oh, that's a song, isn't it? That's who I want to be. I want to have the courage to step out, nurture this new life. I want to exemplify. I want to live in all the things that come from this new life. This is who I want to be. But that takes some courage. So where did this come from David? Okay, I want to be like David. And I started thinking about it. I mean, it doesn't really make sense. This is supposed to happen in the home. It's where this identity is supposed to come from. But we know David's dad didn't even consider him. He didn't even see him. Chapter 16, before chapter 17, Samuel goes to his house. He says, one of your boys is going to be king. I'm here to anoint him. It's going to be one of them. He had 8 boys. 7 of them get led out there. Oh, this one. No, this one's great. No, not that one, this one. He said, I'm all done. You've gone through all of them. You must be wrong. Think about it again. His boy was out there being obedient, and he didn't even consider him. So he had a dad who doesn't even see him. Then we get to chapter 17, and his dad sends him up, and he sees his older brother. His older brother says, what are you doing here? So, you have one job, take care of the sheep. What are you doing up here? Who's taking care of the sheep? Who's doing the little thing you're supposed to be doing? I know your heart. You're arrogant. And you're craving importance. What are you doing up here? He had a brother who didn't protect him, didn't believe in him. He had a dad who didn't even see him. So where does this kind of identity which produces courage come from? Well, he didn't have the dad he would want, and while he didn't have the brother he would want, and he didn't even have the king he would want. Authority's often messed up in this life. Doesn't change our responsibility to and how we react to authority, because they get their authority from the ultimate authority, and that's where our trust is. But what he did get was a prophet. And chapter 16 is before chapter 17. Not very good at math, but I got that figured out. And he gets a prophet who sees something in him. And he has a God who loved him. Well, when did he get to know this? During all that quiet, troubled time? Personal. Kevin and I have been open sometimes about my childhood. And there are people who want to protect me from my childhood. And it took me a long time to get here, but my childhood made me have to go to God. It built a relationship and a dependence on him. It showed me who he was and that he cared for me. I often think we protect our kids from all of the struggles, and what we're really protecting them from is needing God. And then we wonder why at 25 they don't have any use for God. Because at the time they should have been building this, we went in and protected them from every unfair struggle, instead of teaching them where to go to in the midst of the struggle. Later, David would get a friend. All who saw something in him, who spoke something in him that nobody else saw and that nobody else said. They said, I see you, I choose you, I love you, I believe in you. Samuel would say, God sees his heart, and that's what matters. There was a humble heart. There was a committed heart. There was a responsible heart. We spent half a year going through just a look at David of all of the things that could be seen there. Those are all the things God saw, and he called him to. His brother was an idiot. His dad was blind. Now, here's the thing. Most of us in here at some point have had a Samuel or a Jonathan. We've had someone see in us and call out in us and believe in us. Maybe it's a coach, maybe it's a teacher, maybe it was a parent. And those things affected us greatly. Here's my thought. Church of 300, that can't be 4 or 5 people. Brother Mark, here's this crazy thought. I think the church should be full of 300 people. There should be 300 Jonathans in here. There should be 300 Samuels in here. We come together for the purpose of calling out in each other the identity of who we are. We are to speak into each other the love and the life of Jesus. You know what that would make this place? The place where 200 kids north of Atlanta would want to grow up. That's my hope. We're going to look at things we need to put on, things we need to put off. We spent a little bit of time on things we need to put to death. But this has to become who we are. I have 5 minutes, so I'm going to do this as an illustration. We're to be ready to answer. Jay, give me a 1 Peter 5. We're to be ready to answer every man. So, Doug, I don't know if you know Eric, but let me tell you, Eric is my oldest son. He is a chemical engineer. He's working for a company basically as a process engineer. What all that means, I don't know. I say the words, it makes me sound smart. If you want to know the details, you have to talk to Bald Brainiac up there. But as a process engineer, Mike, it revolves around making things, They say we don't make things in America anymore. Well, he works for a company that has to make things. Okay. If those things don't sell, they lose customers, and they go through layoffs. There have been a number of times that the company has gone through layoffs. And so, Eric, I prepared for this conversation. You get to hear it ahead of time. Multiple times I've prepared. Because there may come a day that happens. No matter what you do, no matter how right you are or what the testimony, you don't control that. It's out of your control. It may happen. Now, this is where people want to have the pep talk, and they want to have the pep talk. My mom would say, oh, Eric, don't worry. God's got it. He'll take care of you. Everything will work out. Okay, well, in the end, that's true. Everything's going to work out, but not the way she means it. Okay, that company may close. You may lose your job. You may be starting over. It may cause conflict with the house and the car, and those things might happen. Okay, they were slaves for hundreds of years. Okay, those things happen. The pep talk, he's my kid, he's grown up in my house. That pep talk would be a waste of breath. So what can I tell him? Okay, this is where we have to live. This is the people we need to become. This is how we have to see things. This is what I would start with. I'd say, Eric, you're God's anointed. And he would, I know. He'd start to answer me. He'd cut me off. Yeah, I know. I'm a child of God. I'm outrageously loved. I know. Yeah, that's what would happen. And so we would go here, 1 Peter chapter 5. Eric, what you're going through, you don't control it. So you have to place yourself under the sovereignty of God. Peter would write it this way, humble yourselves therefore under the mighty hand of God. It's not in your control. Quit trying to control everything. Surrender to the sovereignty of God, that he may exalt you in due time. Well, there's some encouragement. It's going to happen. Now, once you start to do that, then you need to do this, son. Cast all your care, all your fear, all you can't control, all your worry. Cast all those things on him. They may happen, but he will still be there, and he still has a purpose. And all this will do is make you closer and depend more on him. But while this is going on, verse 8, you need to be sober. This is serious. Why? You need to be vigilant. You need to be watchful because you have an adversary who's roaming around to cause destruction. And what he's trying to do, he's going to fill you full of lies. He's going to try to steal your hope, your value, your faith. He's going to tell you God doesn't care. He's going to rip this down. He's going to tell you this isn't real. And in this troubled time, you need to be sober. You need to be careful. Verse 9. Whom resist steadfast in the faith, knowing the same afflictions are accomplished in your brethren that are in the world. I know this, son. You're not being picked on. This is just the way it is. Verse 11. Verse 10. Verse 10. Sorry, Jade, you had me. But the God of all grace, who hath called us unto his eternal glory by Christ Jesus. Here we go. Brother Kevin, this is fact. Whatever your situation, okay, this is fact. After that ye have suffered a little while, make you perfect, established, strengthen, and settle you. There's a purpose, and there's a God who cares. Okay, and that is the light we have to learn to live on. Yeah. It begins this nurturing of new life. Brother Doug, you close in a word of prayer this morning?